So, all right, so we're here with Boo Corrigan, who is the athletic director for West Point. Now, first off, where did the name Boo come from?
I'm the baby of 7 kids, and I'm the one named after my father. So it was never going to be Big Gene and Little Gene. So I stand here as a 49-year-old man named Boo. So it's kind of worked out.
I love it, I love it. So now in your work as the athletic director at West Point, and in your previous work, you were at Notre Dame and the Naval Academy.
Yeah.
You've been in a position where your responsibility is to train up our future leaders. And so when someone goes for an education at West Point, it's more than just the textbooks and the reading and writing, but there's character development. And what are some of those? What is it that West Point wants to instill in tomorrow's leaders?
I think the key to the whole thing, right, is we're built on military, academic, and physical. The fourth pillar is character. So if you're physically adept or you're academically wonderful, but you don't have character, it's failed leadership, right? So character is what's intertwined amongst everything that we are as an institution. So as we get kids coming in, young people, right, it's a pretty mature decision to go to West Point, right? It's not a child's decision. So as young men, young women make the decision to come to West Point, that a lot of times is the area that you're looking at of, all right, what are we doing, what can we do, and how do we go about developing that character piece? Because it's arguably more important than the military, academic, and physical. Because at the end of the day, they need to do it the right way, and they need to know, 1, that people trust them, 2, that they're accountable, 3, this is me, 3, that they're passionate about what they do and who they are, and 4, that they have some empathy, that they understand where people are coming from. So if you can get all those things going with the military, with the academic, with the physical, with character, how does that person fail?
So those 4 pillars that you just shared, do you think those are kind of the cornerstones of character then?
To me, from a trust, empathy, accountability, and that's what I talk about every day. At the end of the day, our job is to develop leaders of character. That's how I get there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? With our staff, that's how I get there. When I talk to cadets, that's how I get there, is through those 4 points.
So I have the opportunity to work with a lot of business owners, kind of coach them and help them in their business, grow their businesses, and how can they put themselves in a position of larger, bigger and bigger leadership positions. And you mentioned the word empathy, and I really love that word. My background is I actually studied in school. I studied family therapy. I was going to be a family therapist, and then I started doing internet development, growing a successful business, and now I'm in this position where I'm training other business owners. And so I kind of fall back on that in saying, you know what, leadership and success, it just hinges so much on our idea of relationships and how important that is. And, to hear the word empathy come from West Point, why is empathy so critical?
How are you really, at the end of the day, how are you expected to lead if you don't understand where someone's coming from? How did they get to that point? What is their background? Right? I don't have a lot of time for sympathy. Make no mistake about it. They chose to come to West Point.
Yes.
Right? You chose to play a sport. You chose to get in trouble. Whatever it is. Those are all individual choices. But what led you to that point? How did you get there? Why did you make this decision as opposed to this decision? If you can put yourself into where they are, I think I, as a leader, can get a better understanding of how we get them out of that. Is it a systemic issue? Is it a one-time thing? Did their girlfriend break up with them? Did their boyfriend break up with them? Is someone sick in their family? There's always mitigating factors into something. When you're dealing with someone who has a significant baseline of character, right? There's a reason why you get to that point. If you can figure out what it is from an empathy standpoint, and they trust you enough to talk to you, and they know that you're passionate about them, not passionate about winning a football game. Of course you want to win a football game, right? You want to win the deal, you want to win the court case, you want to win everything, but are you passionate about what you get to do every day? And then they trust you. I think that's at that point that you can figure out what's the best path for them.
And I love that we're having this conversation because I think a lot of people might look at traditional military leadership and they just think back to some Marine Corps drill sergeant just yelling at somebody and saying, suck it up, buttercup kind of thing, I don't have time for crybabies or whatever, when there may actually be some legitimate thing that you can resolve.
Correct.
And then let's continue on with the mission.
Yeah. I think there certainly is a place for yelling. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that, but at some point.
What, athletic directors yell?
but it's a pretty good line. But at some point in time, is it an attrition model or is it a developmental model? And we're a developmental model, right? It's
Wow.
not just it's not just push-ups. It's not, whatever else it is. If you want something and you're going to achieve better by getting some water, go get some water, because that's in the best interest of you physically, and it's going to help you to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah.
50 years ago, maybe a salt tablet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, life was a whole lot different now. I think everyone understands more about what it is. And when you think about the Army, you think about a soldier, right? And when you think about a soldier, you think about people. And that's the business we're in. We're in the people business above anything else.
Wow. So how will this then prepare our today's athletes, tomorrow's soldiers? How will this prepare them for their roles as leaders then?
I think athletics is the best leadership laboratory that we have.
Right.
All right. You go in as a plebe, which is a freshman, and your role at that point may be to be a scout player, right? And you're going to mimic the offense or the defense every game, but you've got to give it your best. Because if you're not giving your best as a scout team, how's the first team going to get better? How's the first team going to understand? And how you grow through that process. You may come in a star, and the next thing you know, you're fourth string. You may come in a star, and the next thing you know, you're starting. But there's a senior ahead of you who hadn't had a chance to play. And this was their year. So again, it's that dynamic at all times.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as they talk about the Army, it's relying on the person to your left and relying on the person to your right. Right? If you're the center, you're relying on the guard to your left and the guard to your right. So it just translates from that into the military, into the corporate world, into your family life, into your church life, whatever it is. You got to be consistent with who you are and what you are. If you have the right core values, that's how it works.
There's this argument in business that that people are just replaceable, and that really you maybe have one person that's I'm in charge, and you are all just interchangeable. But I think what you're talking about is let's invest in our people, and I think there's something from a business perspective, the principles that we talked about, using that. I think what is a message that today's entrepreneur or business owner can learn from the athletic director of West Point in that regard?
Probably not much. No, but that being said, what's better than if I got the opportunity, we win this game tomorrow, and I walk into the locker room and I get embraced by the coaches and the players? That's what team's all about, right? That's what you want. I don't want to walk in there and have them be scared of me. I don't want to walk into there and not have relationships with those people. So at the end, again, I go back to the same thing. At the end of the day, it's about people. And some people, are in the right spot. Some people aren't in the right spot. You got to figure out where to put them. And sometimes people get off the bus, if you will, to coin a phrase. But you gave it their best shot. And you gave them the opportunity. And then from that point on, you're all on the team and you move forward.
All right, so who's winning tomorrow?
Of course Army's winning tomorrow. You thought it was going to be some crazy conversation about winning and losing the game, didn't you?
Well, I'm not so sure we're going to pull this thing out tomorrow. Boo, thank you so much for your time.
Great to be with you.
Right.
Enjoyed it very much. All right, take care.